Hello everyone. Today I'd make a slightly different video, just talking about the other Final Fantasies on the PS1 and from this era. Simply because I'm probably not going to do a review on them, mainly being things that includes Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy Tactics, and I had like a dual disc which even gave me Final Fantasy IV, which maybe I won't touch on as much, but 7, I love 7. 10, I love 10. And so this is more of a general take on the overall Final Fantasy franchise and how I guess the feeling of absolute mid emanates from some of these other titles, even though Final Fantasy is a very strange series where it has been so consistent in just increasing the number and creating the next thing. Like, this is just the next big experience, and yet some of them are very different from each other. And yet some of the main ones are just remembered for the numbers. So like 7, 10, 14 now. 15 was popular, but it's not necessarily a good game. I'm not sure if I'll talk about even the other ones. But the good ones definitely, as I said, so 7, 10, 14 is it's a bit of a mixed bag in some sense, just in that I think the base game 1.0 and 2.0 Realm Reborn of 14, I really don't like them. Like, they are legitimately not good in my opinion and very much a slog, while the second half from Heavensward, Stormblood was okay, but Stormbringers and Endwalker, fantastic, phenomenal. And then Dawn, I even forgot what it's called, Dawnbreaker, Dawn Trail is gone back to it being garbage again, essentially really bad. So 14's definitely a mixed bag, but it's honestly worth it to get to Endwalker and Shadowbringers. Those are phenomenal. Like, they could be mainline Final Fantasy games just on their own in a way. And besides that, I haven't played 16 yet, which I know people are raving about, but it's kind of been on the PS5 for a while and came to PC recently. But anyway, but yeah, just trying the other Final Fantasies of this era. I mean, it's just crazy that Square was cranking out these things in like a 5-year time span. So they were doing, like, from 97 to 2000, they were just cooking, absolutely cooking with all these things. And in that time frame, you had 7, 8, 9 Tactics, and I'm sure some other stuff. And so I just want to go over my kind of grievances with the other Final Fantasies that are just kind of mid, just kind of eh. I've never gone, I guess, below 7 for the Final Fantasy series. I've seen a bit. I've played, I think, a bit of 1. I did really, play a bit of 4. And I could see, like, the appeal, but I just don't know if any of those would ever really, I don't know, hold up. Maybe if they get an HD remaster, I might try them out. But I've never heard someone saying, "Oh, in modern day, you have to play this," or it's amazing. But I hope one day I do get to try them. So starting basically after 7, 8, man, 8 is a game that I remember distinctly hating, despising, and I wasn't sure why. And because I had gone down to the PS1, I was doing a bunch of old RPGs and finding out, oh wow, Legend of Dragoon, that's so good. I thought, I'm going to play a bunch of other things that I just never touched. And so I actually went back to 8, and I was reminded immediately why I despise this game. First of all, the thing that I love about 7 is that it is so simple. I love simple JRPGs, like Skies of Arcadia. They keep the buttons simple, or not even the buttons, but like the layout, the numbers, the damage you deal. They keep it in the low dozens or so. So 8 takes and in 7 you even have materia, like, okay, here's the materia that does healing, fire, whatever. You can attach it to literally anyone's weapon and swap it out, and the more you use it, it levels up. And then if you get it to max level, it creates a new materia that you can use if you want or sell. So I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, and it's very streamlined and it's fun. 8 does the exact opposite of 7. they make everything so complicated with the GF system, which is a Guardian Force. And I think it is funny that yes, you're calling your summons Ifrit, Shiva, etc. They're all your GFs, and I mean, first of all, it's hyper customizable in the sense that if you don't do anything on the baseline for your characters, they will only have the attack button. So you have to basically customize your attack menu to have things like magic, skills, using items, running away. So already there, you have to build your magic, your battle menu basically, and then you have junction magic, which is that as you collect magic, you attach it to your stats. So it's something like you attach fire or lightning to HP or strength or luck or dexterity or whatever, and you have to go through these menus to do it, and everything's gray, and everything feels like a spreadsheet. This feels like a spreadsheet Microsoft Excel game where everything is so bloody complicated. And on the other side of that is, I don't know, the gameplay feels a little bit slower. For example, it's still ATB kind of, but when you click attack, the characters will kind of attack when it's kind of their turn. So even if you input the attack method, they'll kind of lag a bit. While in 7, like Cloud and Tifa, they would just go. They'd go super fast. And 8 was kind of going towards a more realistic standpoint, which is also why in 8 you have the characters' faces and models be only super hyper realistic. While in 7 you had chibi mode in like, you know, the world essentially, and then you became macho mode when you entered battle. And so they got rid of that whole chibi version in this game, and because of that, all the models just look really ugly. Honestly, the sprites, they're not blurred, they're not whatever, and so they look really bad, especially when you're in the world and they're just walking around and all pixelated and they're just kind of janky and whatever. So I don't like it aesthetically. I definitely don't like it from a gameplay perspective. And the story is just, hey, we're training to be mercenaries and we're high school kids, and it's very kind of generic anime stuff. And I really I really don't care. And aside from that, the aesthetics, the style, the music, it's fine, I guess. But everything about this game feels very, very bland, at least in the opening act. And it's so interesting that 7, it had bright colors, contrasting characters. It established its story and style, its gameplay immediately. It's so easy to pick up. This one, you were fighting almost to pick it up. And additionally, beyond that, I would say that a 7 just has amazing pacing. Like as soon as like you hop on the train, it's like, okay, the music is done, and you know it's the battle theme, and you're infiltrating this nuclear reactor basically to shut it down and blow it up. Like that is exciting. And here you're kind of like, oh, I'm a kid out of school learning to be whatever, and then I got to go into the cave and fight the monster. And I'm not saying that's bad, and I'm not saying that is always boring, but the way they're doing it here is that the pacing is just so slow. It feels like nothing is happening and nothing important is happening. And it's just one of those games you pick up for half an hour and it feels like it's been 2 hours. It just feels like everything takes forever to do. And I even went back and I played even more of it. I even got Ifrit from the cave, and I went back to the city, do this ceremony, and I was about to put on my uniform to do like the final exam. I just said, I really don't even care. I don't care even remotely. There's nothing here to grab me. I think things that grab me in 10, for example, are the Hymn of the Faith, the fact that you're in this civilization, then you're over here. The music really hooked me in 10. And 10 has a pretty rough start as well, where it's very much all over the place, which is not good. It's, you're in the future, then you're in the past. It's kind of like you're in the future, then you're in the past, then you're on this ship with the Al Bhed, then you wash up in the ocean, and then you're in the Besaid Islands, and then finally when you get introduced to Yuna, and she's like this spiritual summoner thing, and the music, you're like, okay, now you can continue to tell me. You tell me about your story, because now I was really engaged. In 8, I don't feel, and I don't think there's going to be a hook moment. If and this is I treat every game like this, right? If I play for an hour or two, and there's no thing in there that says, "Wow, this is unique or cool or interesting," why would I bother continuing with it? And I mean, just that's just what 8 is. It's gray, it's boring, it's bland, it's overcomplicated, it's not fun. It is not remotely close to fun. The characters aren't super interesting. At least in that first few things, it's a very weak opening, and I cannot bring myself to care to play it. I might, because some of the cutscenes look really cool and the CG stuff, so I've always been tempted to watch Let's Plays of it, but I really don't watch Let's Plays. I really don't like having a secondhand experience, even if the experience of the thing itself is kind of mid. I don't know, maybe we'll see. Next up is Final Fantasy IX. I just played this the other day, and yeah, I see why people don't talk about this one, really. I mean, I think it might have a hardcore fan base, but playing it after playing all the other ones, I really... how do I say this? I don't know, it just feels kind of goofy to me in a weird way. And it's weird, too. You have Steiner the Knight, who basically has eyeliner on. All the designs are very cartoonish and childish and kind of chibi style. I like the princess. I like Zidane. I really like Vivi as the black mage design. He's, or she, I'm not sure, is really, really cool. Again, there's a lot of throwbacks. I mean, Moogles play a bigger part in this game where they actually save your game. But it's very cutesy, and it's very... I don't know, I was trying to explain this to someone else. With Final Fantasy VII, it felt like they really targeted and cornered the teen market, and each game kind of has an unspoken demographic that it caters to. And over the course of... what would you say? Over the course of a series franchise, that can sometimes shift, but it usually more or less stays the same. And especially in the late 2000s, like you had things where, Zelda was very kind of preteen, E for everyone, and people really wanted things after Majora's Mask to go more to teen, where, something like Twilight Princess. But they said they pivoted and went to Wind Waker, which was at least aesthetically more, like kid friendly, like baby kid friendly, E for everyone type stuff. And so Final Fantasy has always been very T for teen. Like the story of Cloud and his girlfriend dying. He's like, oh, I'm so sad she's dead, bro. It's such a teen centered, teen focused story, energy and everything. Even 8 still had that same vibe. And it's like they completely abandoned that entire direction to go for a more family-friendly, kid-friendly adventure, which, again, it's not a bad thing. I just don't think they did it well, or they don't know how to do it. The other thing that also strikes me is that there's this kind of goofiness about it, like the proportions of the characters, the style of the designs, where especially the Queen reminds me of Dragon Quest. In that, the designs are like over the top cartoonish, just totally silly. And then you have this normal kind of serious characters that are more or less the main cast. Outside of that, the goofiness of the game almost reminds me of Kingdom Hearts. I'm almost convinced the people who worked on this game also worked on Kingdom Hearts, because it just has this same energy or the same vibe of this, childhood. Like they want to make a whimsical, childish wonderment kind of experience, but it's a little bit too edgy and a little bit too weird to be fully like a Kirby game or something of that nature. But I can kind of feel the vibe that they were going for is more kid friendly, but they still had all this weird leftover stuff that they just couldn't shed off, I guess. And yeah, and you go to Kingdom Hearts, and they still have kind of, serious stuff, but it's much more like kid focused, much more whimsical, much more, obviously Disney focused. And just the proportion of the big shoes, the big heads, the kids were running around the island, and it's the vibe is there and it works there, and here it just doesn't. I don't know what to say. And the pacing technically isn't bad. You have this group of thieves that comes to the castle to kidnap the princess, and everything kind of goes wrong. One of the royal knights is brought along for the ride, and they're on this airship, and it crashes, and like stuff is happening. But I really just didn't care. The music, the setting, the tone. I did really like the text box and the text scroll. I really did like how the battle system felt a little bit faster than 8. I also enjoyed how just the text rolled on screen. Like the text would just be very fast, everything very fluid. Oh, I really like the screen transition to the battle. It was more or less like this in 8, but in 9 it just kind of does a spiral and it just sounds really cool. I think 9 is actually my favorite battle screen transition out of all the Final Fantasies, which is a weird thing to compliment, but there it is. But yeah, 9, I don't know. I played it and I thought, all right. Like what, why do I care? I played the opening sequence up until, the plane crashes or whatever, and I thought, okay, I don't really like these characters. I don't really like the story. I don't really like this music. I don't really like this setting or design. The gameplay is serviceable. It's fine, but there was nothing there to make me care. It felt very kind of generic and in a certain direction that I just didn't connect with. I mean, it's different, that's for sure, but yeah, I feel like this is one that I don't know the Final Fantasy people just don't really talk about. You never hear anyone ever talk about 9, not even badly or well. They just don't ever mention it. I guess this is why. It's just kind of the weird one of the group of the family. And then finally, that brings us to Final Fantasy Tactics. This one was very highly rated online, so I was expecting, something from it. But at the same time, I did recognize it was a strategy game. I also recognize the art style is almost the exact same as Bravely Default, so I think there's some connection there as well. At least I think the artist is absolutely the same. So yeah, this is very different from any other Final Fantasy. It's technically turn-based, but it's a strategy game. So you basically have a map, you have a different array of characters. It's basically Fire Emblem. Is what it is. It's Fire Emblem, but people can change classes and jobs. I was really surprised by the very cute art style and how the dialogue did not match it whatsoever. It felt a lot darker than even most average Final Fantasies, where it's like, oh, we'll make sure to kill you slowly so that you can suffer the most amount. Like just like, okay, all right. Not what I expected that character to say when they looked like that. But yeah, it's a general story about the Zodiac. It's saying the Zodiac Brave story again, Bravely Default. I don't know, and it's connected to Evilus and this setting where there's a kind of a split in the kingdom, and they're fighting. And there's just a bunch of bandits and criminals that you start off at the first time, and the whole premise is that it's being told through the perspective of a historian who wants to correct the record that the criminal or one of the main antagonists of the war that has been antagonized is actually a hero, and so that's you, the main character, Raziel or something. I always name the main character after myself, so I can't ever remember sometimes. But this one, yeah, it's like it's Fire Emblem, and it has permadeath as well. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever. And it's a fine strategy game. It's not bad at all. But I guess I reflected mainly on this, that with strategy games, I really either love them or hate them. I am very black or white on these subjects and these kinds of games. For example, I love games like Valkyria Chronicles. What was that other one? But of course, RTSs like Red Alert 2, StarCraft, and Operation Codename Bakery. Like really fun tactics, turn-based strategy kind of game. And then if it doesn't hit the right, I don't know, the right music, the right flow of gameplay, I legitimately hate it, and I can't play it, and I refuse to play it. It's funny. There's been quite a few tactics versions of other games like Persona Q. I think I played a demo of like a Metal Slug, but it was tactics based, which was actually pretty fun. And I find the main thing is that as long as it's streamlined, it is not super complicated. So in this one, I mean, honestly, there's quite a few things that are very bothersome about it. One is that the camera only rotates every corner, so there are only 4 possible camera rotations, and I have to keep constantly, especially in a map where there's a bunch of buildings, I have to constantly keep rotating the camera, and it's not fast, so I can see where my character even has to go on the grid and attack so-and-so. And even, I know what, I think it is the amount of button presses, because this is crazy, yeah, you would click move, then it gives you a tutorial. Like, I don't know if you can turn it off. I assume, but I know it says, okay, I click move on my character. It says, okay, no, then it has a little message pop up saying, okay, move, I'm pressing X and circle or whatever. And I have to click X again and like, okay. And then I choose the place and then my character moves there. And it's like, are you sure you want to do this? And it's like, yes, I am sure. That's confirmation. Then you're done there. Now you're positioned to attack. Then from the menu, you click act, and then you click attack or something else. And then you select the square of the character you want to attack. And then it shows, you versus character, and you click yes. And then it's like, are you sure? And it's like, yes. And then finally you can attack. And then finally you do a confirmation that it was successful or something. So it's just a lot of button presses. It's a very frustrating camera. I really do love the art style and the design of the world and the level in these games, but I feel that you could tweak this a bit or maybe mod it or something and it'd be a lot more fun, but it is just very, very kind of tedious, I would say, and fairly difficult as well. What kind of made me drop it is I had finished the first few battles and I had gone to the next area on the world map, and I was like, oh cool, you could use a menu to navigate and go there, or you can just physically touch the thing. So I had a really hard battle. I was about to save, but I was messing around the world map, and I went back to the original starting point, and I went back to the level I just beat, and I realized, oh no, wait, there's a day counter that's increasing, like in Final Fantasy Chronicles. And so when I came back to the place where I just won the battle, it started like a raid, like I was being attacked, and I hadn't healed at all. I didn't have anyone on the field. I had lost a lot of people, and it was like a foregone conclusion. I was just going to lose the game, and I thought, okay, well, the game won't be too punishing. I mean, obviously, if it just springs a random attack on you, it'll kick you out of that place, and you might lose those, characters or whatever. But at least you could continue. So sure enough, I do auto battle. I don't care, and the game just resets like a classic JRPG. It just says, "Oh, you died. Okay, all your progress is gone." So that just made me say, "Okay, you know what? I'll leave this game to other people." Again, I love the aesthetics. I love how it looks and a lot of things about it, but don't care about the story, don't care about the gameplay. I just can't get into it. So tactics is another one I'm just saying bye-bye to. I just cannot get into this. And also, I don't understand why in the top right corner, it always said 2H or 7H or whatever, which implies your height. And I'm sure that's important for how much damage you're doing. And I always thought it stood for the hour of the day for some reason, because it's like 7 or 6 or whatever. Whereas, I know, wait, based on your elevation, it changes. And I'm sure it's important, but I don't think it's as important to always be displayed as this giant number in the top right corner. Like, you can still attack enemies on different elevations, and it will do, like, less damage, but it's not this massively important thing. I don't know, I feel it's the wrong place to put it. Like, you should put it on the tile that you're moving to. But anyway, that's just me. But yeah, that's tactics. I cannot into tactics. And then we're going to get into the other ones that are... So then after that, you have 10, and I love 10. 10 is great. It has a rough start, but 10 is just one of the best stories. It's my favorite, actually, more than 7. 7 has a good pacing, but 10 has the better story. It is, and the music in 10 is just phenomenal. So 10's a good one, and then after that you have 11, which is the MMO, which I never played. I've only seen gameplay of, and I don't want to play. And I've seen some people play it. After 11, you had a 12, which was more of a open world, open combat. And I did play 12, and I beat 12, but I really effing hated it. Like 12 was the one Final Fantasy I fully beat that said that was not worth it. And that's a terrible thing to say when you finish a game and you say that wasn't worth it, because it basically symbolizes that it wasted your time essentially. And 12's story was also very weak, and it just was like, oh, this is Star Wars, I guess. This is just Star Wars, and not even a good kind of Star Wars. And I didn't really like how the characters looked. Anyway, I beat 12, but I did not like it. The 12 was the one I really regret, and how I realized, okay, not every Final Fantasy you have to play. You should skip some of them. I liked the Viera, I liked Balthier, I liked Captain Voss Ronsenberg of Damask. Van and Penelo, though, they suck. They're worthless characters. Totally worthless. And the whole big twist is that Cid's father is Darth Vader or something. It doesn't matter. Anyway. And so then after 12, I mean that's the other thing though. Like just before I get off 12 and I go to 13, is that 12's gameplay is actually very fun. I really like 12's gameplay. It was a lot of fun, and it is the one thing that kept me going through. I'm really there for story, music, aesthetics, and whatever, but the gameplay was so good in 12 that it did actually keep me in there. So I will say that on that point. It was a lot of fun. And reminded me a lot of like Old Republic and Dragon Age and stuff like that. So, on to 13. The other one that I put in the mid-range. 13 is like the fan game to me, or the fandom game, because this was the first time where, I mean, Final Fantasy, ever since I'd say 7, really, they started really focusing and doubling down on graphics, CG cutscenes, to the point where I think in 10, it was almost comically funny even before that, how well animated the CG cutscenes were, and you go back to basic gameplay and it feels like two different games. At least that's how I thought of playing 10, but I realized that's the case for some of the earlier games. But it felt like it was a completely different game experience, whatever. Oh wait, that's that character? I don't even recognize them anymore, kind of thing. So in 13, that whole sort of graphical performance, cinematic, whatever experience finally culminated in 13, which was a fully cinematic experience, to the point where the story and the gameplay, the story and the characters and the cinematics are more important than the gameplay. This is the one where basically every teen girl watched on YouTube and connected with the characters, and oh my god, I'm gonna cosplay so and so. Like, this is the cosplay game. I don't know how else to describe it. And I'm not saying it's bad necessarily. I'm just saying it's very popular. It was the popular Final Fantasy because it was super accessible. It was mostly cutscenes, and so people could, enjoy it. And I just remember it was a very big time for fandoms, and the fandom around this game was super, super big. And just the entire concept of a fandom really occurred to me when I thought of this game, and all the girls cosplaying Lightning, regardless if they've played it or seen it on YouTube. It doesn't really matter. And I guess additionally to that point, so actually playing 13, like, it's fine. They have this whole continuum shift system. It's very basic, but also very boring at the same time. So you can, attack an enemy, and then you have to shift into another version and then continue attacking them if they change their weakness or something. I never really cared for it. 13 is just a giant movie, and the gameplay was like fine up until a certain point where I think in the second chapter the difficulty spike just goes like this, and suddenly you actually figure out what you're doing. If it was just a game I could mindlessly press X through, I might have actually preferred that, because if you're just doing doubling down and you're just doing story, then just give me a story and just don't even bother with gameplay at that point. Just become a friggin' David Cage game at that point, even without the choices. I mean, it looks amazing though. It looks, the graphics, the style, the characters, everything looks really cool. And it was so successful they had at least two more sequels. There was X2, Lightning Returns, and I'm not sure there's probably another one. um so yeah, 13 and 13's story, because I did look up kind of what the story, where it goes and what it does. And it's like there's a giant cocoon that has the AI consciousness of, the last civilization in it or something, and they need to restore it, but then they also destroy it because you have to kill God in a JRPG. And I just, even after knowing what happens in the story, I still did not care. So to this point, or to this day, I still don't know what the ending of this game is really, except that cocoon or whatever it is gets destroyed or not, or I don't care. So 13 was interesting culturally, but as the game itself and what it actually is less interesting than the cultural impact it had, if that even makes sense. And then finally after 13 we cut to 14. So 14, again, I already talked about that, how it's a mixed bag, where the beginning half is just, the beginning part is just honestly terrible. I really don't support it or like it at all. I wish you could just skip 1.0, and technically you can, or 2.0 rather. And then the latter half is fantastic, and now they've gone back to being not very good with Dawntrail. So it's a weird mixed bag. I really do think though that Shadowbringers and Endwalker are some of the greatest and best stories I've seen in gaming, and if not the entire Final Fantasy series. So that's why it's very difficult for me to kind of love this half misshapen child that they've been building out, which is the essence of 14. And finally, we come to Final Fantasy 15. Another Final Fantasy game I did beat and kind of regret playing. So this is kind of on the same basis as 12, but in a very different way. 15... I can say it's not a good game, but again, the cultural impact it had was so powerful and so great that it really outlives the game itself. If there was not hype or the budget or the marketing for 15, I don't think it'll be as popular as it is. And it's really more popular as an idea, as a notion, and the characters, rather than the game itself as a whole. And there's a few reasons for that. Because this game was in development for almost 10 years or something, graphically, mechanically, it's very impressive, but the story is just kind of all over the place, and it does not make any sense whatsoever. I mean, it makes some sense, but you're a prince, you get attacked, there's your evil uncle who's actually an immortal guy from 10,000 years, whatever, who's there to fight you. You're supposed to get married, you can't find your wife or your bride, and you go on a road trip with the boys to basically go find her. I don't know. So the real problem is, because it was in development for 10 years, there were multiple scripts, multiple parts of the story, and multiple parts of the game that were built separately and independently from each other with completely different visions. And what they just decided to do was to Frankenstein and stitch it together at the end of the day and make a game that is very thematically dissonant. And if you're kind of wondering a specific part that I'm talking about, it's the time skip after you go to the not Venice level and you fight the giant Leviathan using Noctis's super, like all the king's weapons. And then there's a time skip, and then suddenly Ignis is blind, and he's also kind of an asshole. He's very bitter. And you just have this feeling that, okay, I must have missed like 2 or 3 chapters in the game, because suddenly, like, all the characters have shifted, all their personalities are different, your priorities and locations are totally different, and it feels like it's really missing critical content. And so the notion of 15 is much stronger than the game itself. The notion of 15 is 4 guys going on a road trip. Each one of them has a very distinct personality. You have Prompto, kind of the smaller guy, who has ranged attacks. He's a photographer. You have Ignis, who's kind of, the parental figure of the group, who's always cooking and setting up tents and stuff. And you have Gladiolus, who is kind of, just the macho beefcake dude who's Pretty straightforward, pretty standard. He's just like fighting and hunting and killing stuff. And then you have, of course, Noctis, the main prince, who's like, main character guy. So yeah, 15. It's a very, I would say, it's a very beautiful mess. It's a very beautiful, interesting mess where you have cars, you have cell phones, you have you have sections of the game. Okay, so from the gameplay perspective, you have a whole open world and all these side quests you can do. But at a certain point, like that was made by Team A, and once you do the story missions beyond that, all of those side missions get locked and you can't do them anymore. And that whole open world section of the game is gone. And the entire other half of the game, which is made by Team B, even though it looks open world, is basically railroading you through these environments and forcing you essentially into these hallway scenarios. And then it just becomes really odd near the end of the game where there's this giant god or something, or Bahamut. I don't think it's Bahamut, but it's like some giant enemy you have to kill, and you get the Ring of the King. And basically it's this ultra super mega powerful thing where if you just hold down circle or something, it instantly kills anything in your path. So it becomes this weird thing where you're just going down dark hallways in this Imperial palace at the end of the game, just one-shotting everything so that people don't get fed up and throw down the game. They're like, well, we don't want people to quit. We want them to actually beat it, so we're going to give them basically a nuke, a portable, handheld nuke, so that they can at least go on easy mode, so they have an excuse to actually finish the game, because it's so convoluted in its components. So, I mean, that's really 15. The characters are great, and in fact, the DLC explaining the characters and their backstory that they made after the game came out is a much more coherent, concise construction of content that explains why those characters are, why they're like that, who they are, and their deal. And it tells just a better story. It's like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end in the DLC, and it really establishes their characters. So. And it feels like things that should have come out before the game chronologically, but I digress. So 15, it's something that people say they love. It's like 13, where people get sucked into the hype, the romance, the idea of the thing without actually having to experience or play it. Because having to actually play it, it's just filled with so many holes that you have to close your eyes and just accept it for what it is. I will say, though, that at least the ending kind of wraps it up. The ending kind of delivers this final big moment where it's, this giant... And I love the end level, the design, this giant abandoned city that's filled with monsters and stuff. It's something I've always thought of, or I might have seen in some other game, and I thought it was such a cool concept, and I'm so glad to actually see it in a certain style in 15. And then it has the big ceremony at the end, and it has the finishing of the logo with Lunafreya being filled in with Noctis on the throne for the front cover of the game. I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool. So they at least they had a good solid ending. They had all the pictures and whatever you Prompto took throughout your journey that show up at the end. And yeah, no, it was like, all right, well, you had a good ending. It was a bit haphazard. It wasn't terribly long, but and I almost forgot, the gameplay is very, I would say, brain dead. You are basically just mashing X, and it's live action. It's not turn based at all, but the entire, I don't know, stress or strategy or tension of the battle is completely gone. Mainly because this is my issue with Kingdom Hearts. There feels like there's no impact. When you hit an enemy, when you're diving across everywhere, there's not a huge feeling of vibration or sound or whatever. It feels like you're just mashing X to win the battle. And it feels it's kind of like on baby mode, even though you're playing on normal. And it just feels like it's just a bunch of numbers, like 3,000 hit points, 5,000 points healed, like boom, bang, bing. It's very stylistic without a lot of substance, at least when it comes to the gameplay. The car itself is fine. I mean, yeah, you drive around. It works how it's supposed to. the characters are probably the strongest aspect of this game, but it really is such a weird, beautiful, broken mess that kind of only exists on in notions rather than the actuality of the thing itself. I think there were definitely more fans of this game that haven't played it than those who have. It's just one of those games, which is fine. And I guess with wrapping this up, that brings us to 16, which is the up until recently the PS5 exclusive, which, as I understand, takes a lot from Game of Thrones, and I'm excited to at least try that eventually and see what it's like, but it's really hard to gauge what the quality of 16 really is, simply because so few people have played it that it makes sense that people haven't talked about it. And if people have gushed about it and talked about it and experienced it, it's kind of like that bus has left and we're kind of stuck not knowing how good it really is. But I definitely something I want to play on PS5 once I get a PS5, and I'll be excited to see what it's like. I mean, I think at the very worst, it's probably mid, just because I just can't get a vibe as to what people are saying about it. Some people say, so it's one of the best, and some people say it's really good, but I don't think it's something that would blow me away necessarily, but at best I think it would be a very good, if not very decent story. And it's interesting that it's one of the few stories where the script was written in English, so all the voice acting, whatever, are also done in English, and it's all limp synced basically. There's none of that weird desyncing. But yeah, I think that's kind of covered all the Final Fantasies that I don't care to review or really talk about. The mid Final Fantasies, I suppose. So yeah, just kind of a recap of the whole series. I will say though that there is one game that I just realized I forgot, which is kind of a fan favorite. Crystal Chronicles. Crystal Chronicles is man, that game has a lot of soul. I don't really like playing it, but I really like it, again, as a concept, as a game. So I guess I'm in the same camp as people who like the idea of the game, but don't like playing it. And Crystal Chronicles is fine. It's just that at like year 4 or 5 or something, at a certain point, the game becomes a little bit too difficult that it kind of requires you that you need friends in order to play it, in order to really have a proper experience, because it becomes just literally too difficult. And you always have one person always carrying the little thing, or you can get a Moogle to do it for you to protect you. So Crystal Chronicles, I have a soft spot for that game, mainly because the music is just stupidly amazing. It is really, really good. And but yeah, it's not something that I have to say you have to rush out and buy. It's like, yeah, I mean, Crystal Chronicles, it's like a niche, it's a very small, I know, I like it being a niche small thing that only those who know about it, but it's not something that I think could get popular appeal or acclaim or something. But it was very cute. It's like the closest Final Fantasy has ever gotten to making a Kirby game, if that makes any sense. It very much has a Kirby vibe to it, which is very cute, while still being very folkish and very Celtic and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I'd say that's how I feel about the Final Fantasy series and all the other ones. I also forgot, I have not played. Actually, no, I did play a demo of Stranger of Paradise, and again, it was fine, but I'd rather have it live on as, the Jack Chaos memes. I'm comfortable with it just being a meme to me instead of actually playing it. Freaking Limp Bizkit. Oh, I love that. But yeah, I ended up playing a little bit of it. I thought, oh, okay, it's fine. It's nothing amazing, but I don't know. One day I hope I'd like to at least get to try the first 6 Final Fantasies and just get those out there. But so far, that's kind of my take on the series so far. So really, the only ones you need to play are 10, 7, and 14, frankly. Yeah, pretty much. So, and so that's what the series is to me. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to rant or talk about this because I think, it is a great series. It's a very culturally hugely impactful series. Like, there are people who probably know about Chocobos and Moogles who've never touched a Final Fantasy game. You probably know Cloud Strife. I mean, just as an iconic character. But yeah, it's kind of an odd thing to look at all the other games that they've also gone into and created and made that I've kind of been passed over, and for in some cases good reason. So yeah, there was some guy who actually came up and he asked me, because we were talking about games. He's like, "Oh, oh, you like 10? 10 is good." And he's like, "What about 14?" And he's asking me all these things because I just beat one of them. And so he's like, "Oh, so do I have to like play all the Final Fantasies to like know what's going on?" And I said, "Absolutely not." In fact, there are only very few Final Fantasies you should actually play in full. The other ones you can be accustomed to and acquainted with, but you don't have to fully commit. But overall, it's a very impressive series, and I still hope they keep just pumping that number up. There were jokes about people making, Final Fantasy 25 like XXV, but I hope we get there. I hope they just keep making them until we get to that point. But gaming right now as an industry, it's very expensive to make a single game alone, so who knows. Anyway, I think that's enough said. I'll cut myself off there. Final Fantasy, great series. Not as many games as I'd recommend, but there it is. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.